Hey everybody, Bob Finelli, welcome back. And so today on Movement Science, we're going to kind of look at the difference between what we call structural anatomy and functional anatomy. So structural anatomy is what most of us are taught. I know I was originally. It's in a lot of the textbooks. It's kind of how we tend to study the body. And what does that mean? So a lot of our studies then sometimes are done with people who are not in motion sometimes. Cadavers lying on tables, chairs, etc. People sitting in chairs like I've shown numerous times with the knee. Just looking at the structures, you straighten your foot out. And that's okay, and that's one way to study the body, but I think the mistake we make sometimes is we take what we learned down there as individual structures, and we assume that that's what the body does when it's upright and moving and function. They're not always a match. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple examples of that and why we kind of want to start to look and say, well, body, what do you actually do functionally? That reflects back to our concepts of motion is task-specific and context-dependent, right? Also, it's synergistic, so things tend to move together, okay? The body creates synergies to accomplish what it wants to do. It doesn't do it in isolation. So let's talk about some concepts that we might have been taught that might be correct based on the environment that they were taught from, but not overall to when there's a change in that environment. So, for example, I was taught initially that the hamstring flexes the knee. Okay, so that's correct. If I'm lying on my stomach on the ground and I want my hamstring to do something, I'll bring my foot up and it will flex the knee and my hamstring will contract over and over again. Or if I'm on the ground and I want my abductors to do something, I'm going to have to move them like that and abduct them away from the system. Or if I want to train my adductors on the ground, I'll have to do that. I think the problem comes when we put people upright. And again, they hit all those things we've talked about. There's massive momentum driving the body. There's gravity in the ground. There's a chain reaction. There's integration. Everything becomes triaxial and triplanar. So, if in upright function, the hamstring actually flexed the knee, then I would walk like this. I don't do that. If the abductor generally abducted the hip, then I would walk like this. And if the adductor did, I would do that. Well, first of all, how are you going to do that? Because this would want to drive you out. At the same time, this would want to drive you in, and this would want to kick you back. So those motions are correct in that that's how the body does it when it's down there on the ground. All bets are off when we're upright, okay? All bets are off. And why is that significant to us? Because we have to know what the system does when it's upright and how these things are driven, because if someone gets hurt or they want to get better at their sport, then all motions again are task-specific and context-dependent, okay? So the hamstring does not flex the knee in upright function. It actually extends it. And I'll show you how it does that. When I step forward and you see my knee flex, that's given for free. Okay, gravity in the ground just met. We talked about that in the past. Imagine if I'm walking in a pool, you're not going to see as much flexion. But in neither case did I consciously drive my leg down to the ground to create flexion. First of all, it's not energy efficient. The system wouldn't do it that way. Second of all, your thighs they'd have their own zip code, they'd be so big. So here's what happens. You hit the ground and the knee flexes because gravity in the ground met. Then this pelvis comes forward, rotates around my back pelvis, drives my femur back, and the hamstring says, ooh, let me extend that knee for you. Actually extends it. Why is that significant? Because if someone's running and they pop their hamstring in extension, and then we lie them on their back and have them do a lot of flexion, the body might say, it's close, but it's not really what I need. In fact, when I was running, my hands were driving. I was maybe starting to go up onto one foot. I was extending, my thoracic spine was doing something, my abdominals were doing something, my pelvis was in motion, my foot was in motion, my knee was in motion, and they were moving in three planes, maybe biasing towards certain ones, but always moving in three. That's actually what I need. So we always want to think about, again, where do those concepts that we have come from? Like we talked about the knee is a hinge joint, right? It is a hinge here. It is not when it's down here. So we need to go, how does the body get it done, right? And again, what is the right motion at the right joint at the right time? all motion is context-dependent, task-specific, and it's also synergistic, isn't it? Moving together as one, or as a chain reaction.